The space station called Helix Prime was the biggest medical center in the galaxy. It floated in the darkness between 3 star systems, and ships came to it from every corner of known space. The station was beautiful. Its walls were made of white metal that never got dirty. Its floors were smooth and always warm. Machines did most of the work, and the doctors who worked there were the best in the universe. Park Hannah stood at the entrance of the main medical wing and took a deep breath. She was small, even for a human. Her black hair was tied back in a simple bun, and she wore plain blue clothes that all nurses wore. On her chest was a small badge that said she was from Earth. She was 29 years old, and she was the first human ever allowed to work at Helix Prime. The doors opened with a soft sound, and Hannah walked inside. The medical wing was huge. The ceiling was so high that she could not see the top. Strange machines floated in the air, moving by themselves, carrying tools and medicine. Alien doctors walked past her without looking at her. They were tall and strange and beautiful in ways that made her feel very small. A voice called out from behind her. "So this is the human they sent us." Hannah turned around. A tall alien stood there, looking down at her. His name was Dr. Velmok, and he was a Tasari. He had 4 arms and silver skin that looked like fish scales. His eyes were yellow and had no pupils. He was the head doctor of the trauma wing, and he did not look happy. "Yes, sir," Hannah said. She bowed her head a little, showing respect. "I am Park Hannah. I am here to learn and to help in any way I can." Dr. Velmok made a sound that might have been a laugh. Another alien came to stand beside him. This one was Dr. Krillax, an insect-like creature with 6 legs and large black eyes. His mouthparts clicked together when he spoke. "A human nurse," Dr. Krillax said. "What can a human possibly teach us? Your species still cuts people open with metal knives. You still use needles to put medicine into bodies. You are children playing with toys." Other aliens in the room heard this and turned to look. Some of them laughed. Some of them shook their heads. None of them looked at Hannah with kindness. Hannah kept her face calm. She had been told this would happen. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered space travel 50 years ago, and their technology was far behind everyone else. Most aliens saw humans as useful only for simple work or for fighting in wars. The idea that a human could work in medicine was funny to them. "I understand," Hannah said quietly. "I know I have much to learn. I will work hard and not cause any trouble." Dr. Velmok looked at her for a long moment. Then he pointed with one of his 4 arms toward a door at the far end of the room. "You will work in sanitation. You will clean the recovery pods and remove the bio-waste. That is all you are qualified to do." Hannah nodded. "Yes, sir." She walked to the sanitation area without complaint. The other workers there were small robots that rolled along the floor. They did not talk to her. They did not laugh at her. In some ways, that was better. For the next 3 weeks, Hannah cleaned. She scrubbed the insides of recovery pods where sick aliens had been healed. She removed waste that smelt bad and looked worse. She mopped floors that were already clean because the machines kept them clean. But the doctors wanted to give her something to do. But Hannah did not just clean. She watched. She listened. She learned. She watched how the Tasari doctors used their 4 arms to operate 3 machines at once. She watched how the recovery pods use light and sound to heal wounds without touching them. She watched how the AI systems could scan a patient in seconds and know exactly what was wrong. The technology was amazing. It was better than anything on Earth. But Hannah noticed something else too. The doctors trusted the machines completely. When a machine said a patient was fine, they believed it. When a machine said a patient would die, they accepted it. They never questioned. They never tried other ways. The machines were always right, so why would they? Hannah thought about her own training. She had not learned medicine in a clean white station. She had learned it in the mud and blood of Earth's worst places. She had been a combat medic for 15 years, working in wars that most people tried to forget. She remembered the Pacific Crisis, when the hospitals were destroyed and there was no clean water. She remembered the European collapse, when medicines ran out and doctors had to make their own. She remembered holding soldiers together with her bare hands, refusing to let them die, even when every machine said they were already dead. Humans did not have advanced technology, but they had something else. They had 10,000 years of learning how to survive when everything went wrong. They had knowledge passed down from grandmother to granddaughter, from battlefield to battlefield. They knew how to heal with almost nothing because, for most of their history, almost nothing was all they had. One night, Hannah was cleaning a pod when young alien came in. His name was Melvix, and he was a Tessari like Dr. Velmok, but much younger. He was still a student, still learning. "You are the human," Melvix said. It was not a question. "Yes," Hannah replied. "I watched you today. You were not just cleaning. You were studying the machines." Hannah paused her work. "Is that a problem?" Melvix tilted his head, a gesture that meant curiosity in his species. "No, I just wondered why. You are only a cleaner. Why do you care how the machines work?" Hannah put down her cleaning tool and looked at the young alien. "Because machines break," she said. "Power fails. Systems crash. And when that happens, someone needs to know how to help without them." Melvix made a strange sound. "Our machines do not break." Hannah smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "Every machine breaks eventually. And when yours do, you will wish someone had learned another way." She went back to her cleaning, and Melvix walked away, thinking about what she had said. 3 days later, the machines broke, and everything changed. The alarm was loud and terrible. It screamed through every hall of Helix Prime, a sound that meant disaster was coming. Red lights flashed on the walls. Voices shouted through the speakers. Hannah dropped her cleaning tool and ran toward the trauma wing. When she got there, she saw chaos. Doctors ran in every direction. Machines spun and beeped and flashed warning lights. Through the big windows, Hannah could see a ship docking at the station. It was broken and burning, with holes in its side and smoke pouring from its engines. What happened? Hannah asked a passing robot. "Diplomatic cruiser attacked," the robot answered in its flat voice. 47 survivors incoming. Multiple critical injuries. All trauma bays activated. Hannah pushed through the crowd toward the main trauma room. The doors were open, and she could see inside. It was bad. It was very bad. Alien patients were being carried in on floating beds. Some of them were screaming. Some of them were silent, which was worse. Blood of many colors, red and blue and green, covered the floor. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. Dr. Velmok stood in the center of the room, shouting orders. His forearms moved fast, pointing at machines, pointing at patients, trying to control everything at once. But there were too many patients, too many injuries. The machines could not keep up. The autosurgeon needs 17 minutes to recalibrate for Kashian biology. A robot announced. Dr. Velmok looked at the patient on his table. It was a Kashian diplomat, a creature with purple skin and 3 eyes. 2 of his eyes were closed. The third stared at nothing. Blood poured from a wound in his chest. "He does not have 17 minutes, Dr. Velmok said. His voice was empty, defeated. "He has perhaps 2. The other doctors looked away. In their world, when the machine could not save you, you died. That was simply how things were. But Hannah did not look away. She pushed forward, moving past the frozen doctors, past the useless machines. She grabbed a tool from a nearby table. It was a manual clamp, an old thing that the station kept only for history. No one had used it in 100 years. What are you doing? Dr. Velmok demanded. Hannah did not answer. She pushed her hands into the Cassian's wound, feeling through the hot blood for the source. Her fingers found it. A torn artery, pumping out life with every heartbeat. She clamped it with her fingers, squeezing hard. The bleeding slowed. "Get me something to tie this off," Hannah said. Her voice was calm, steady, the voice of someone who had done this before. "Thread, wire, anything thin and strong." "We do not use such things," Dr. Krillak said. He had come closer, watching with his big black eyes. "The regeneration pods handle all tissue repair. The regeneration pods are not here right now." "I am. Get me something where this man dies." Young Melvix ran to a broken machine nearby. He pulled out a thin wire from inside it and brought it to Hannah. She took it without looking up. Her fingers moved fast, tying the artery closed with knots that her grandmother had taught her. Old knots. Simple knots. Knots that had saved lives in wars fought before space travel existed. The Cassian's breathing became stronger. His third eye blinked. "He is stable," Hannah said. "Get him to a recovery pod now. He will live." She did not wait to see him taken away. There were other patients. Other dying beings who needed help. Hannah moved through the trauma room like a ghost. She was everywhere at once. Here, she pressed her hands against the wound to stop the bleeding. There, she made a splint from broken machine parts to hold a shattered bone in place. At another table, she breathed into the mouth of an alien whose lungs had stopped working, pushing air into him until his body remembered how to breathe on its own. The alien doctors watched her. They had never seen anything like this. Their training had taught them to trust machines. When machines failed, they had no backup plan. But this small human had 100 backup plans. 1,000. She had answers for problems they did not know existed. "How is she doing this?" Dr. Krillax asked. His voice was quiet, almost afraid. Dr. Velmok did not answer. He was watching Hannah pull a piece of metal from an alien's body, using nothing but her fingers and a piece of cloth. The alien should have been dead. The machines had said he was too damaged to save. But Hannah had not listened to the machines. The crisis lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, the trauma room was quiet. The floors were covered with blood. The machines were beeping softly, doing their slow work of healing the patients Hannah had saved. 47 survivors had come from the burning ship. 39 of them would live. 9 of those 39 had been saved by Hannah alone, using techniques that the alien doctors had never seen. Hannah sat on the floor in the corner, her blue clothes soaked with blood of every color. She was tired. So tired. Her hands were shaking. But she was alive, and so were her patients. Dr. Velmok walked over to her. He stood there for a long moment, looking down at the small human who had just done the impossible. "How?" he finally asked. "How did you know what to do?" Hannah looked up at him. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. "On Earth, we learned medicine the hard way. We did not have machines that could heal everything. We had to learn with our hands, with our minds, with whatever we could find." She paused. "Your technology is amazing, but technology can fail. When it does, you need to know the old ways." Dr. Velmok was silent for a long time. Then, slowly he lowered himself down until he was sitting on the floor beside her. It was a gesture of respect that Tassari rarely showed to anyone. "Will you teach us?" he asked quietly. "The old ways?" Hannah smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "Yes," she said. "I will teach you." But the real test was still coming. 3 days later, a ship arrived that would change everything. And on that ship was someone who already knew what Hannah could do. The days after the crisis were strange. The doctors who had laughed at Hana now looked at her differently. They did not laugh anymore. Some of them nodded when she walked past. Some of them asked her questions about what she had done. Dr. Velmach had even given her a new job. She was no longer just a cleaner. She was now a junior medical assistant. It was not much, but it was something. Hannah spent her time teaching the younger staff about basic medicine. She showed them how to stop bleeding with pressure. She showed them how to make a splint from simple materials. She showed them how to feel a pulse and count heartbeats without a machine. The young aliens were curious. They had never thought about medicine this way before. Malvix followed her everywhere. He was the most eager student. He asked questions constantly, wanting to understand everything. "Why do you use your hands so much?" he asked one day. "Because hands can feel things that machines cannot," Hana explained. "A machine can tell you what is wrong, but hands can tell you how wrong it is. Hands can feel the difference between a patient who is fighting to live and a patient who has given up." Malvix thought about this. "Can you teach me to feel that difference?" Hannah smiled. "I can try." On the third day after the crisis, the station received a message. An important ship was coming. A very important ship. The message came from the Velthari Empire. The Velthari were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Their ships were the fastest. Their weapons were the strongest. Their soldiers were the most feared. When the Velthari spoke, everyone listened. And now, a Velthari ship was coming to Helix Prime. Dr. Velmach called all the senior staff together. His face was worried. His forearms kept moving nervously. "The patient is Colonel Dravik," he announced. "He's one of the most important military leaders in the galaxy. His campaigns have shaped the borders between empires for 50 years. 3 days ago, someone tried to kill him." The doctors murmured among themselves. An assassination attempt on Colonel Dravik was big news. Very big news. What are his injuries? Dr. Krillax asked. Dr. Velmach pulled up the medical files on a floating screen. The information was bad. Very bad. The colonel had damage to multiple organs. His nervous system was failing. Worst of all, the assassin had used an illegal bioweapon, a poison that was eating his cells from the inside. "The bioweapon is unlike anything in our database," Dr. Velmach said. "Our machines cannot identify it. They cannot fight it. According to our best estimates, the colonel has less than 2 weeks to live." The room was silent. Everyone understood what this meant. If Colonel Dravik died at Helix Prime, there would be consequences. The Velthari Empire would be angry. Very angry. "What can we do?" someone asked. Dr. Velmach's shoulders dropped. "We can make him comfortable. That is all." Hana stood at the back of the room, listening. She studied the medical files on the screen, reading the information about the bioweapon. Something about it seemed familiar. She had seen something like this before. Long ago. On Earth. The Velthari ship arrived 2 hours later. It was massive, a warship painted black and gold. Smaller ships flew around it like insects around a giant beast. The station's docking bay had to be expanded just to fit it. Soldiers came first. Velthari honor guards in golden armor, carrying weapons that could destroy buildings. They lined the hallways, their faces hidden behind masks, their bodies perfectly still. Then came the medical pod, floating between them like a treasure being protected. All the doctors gathered to receive the colonel. Even Hannah was there, standing at the back as always. She wore clean clothes now, no longer covered in blood, but she still felt out of place among all these important people. The medical pod entered the trauma wing. It was large and made of black metal, with tubes and wires coming out of it. Inside, barely visible through a small window, was Colonel Dravik. Hana had seen many injured beings in her life. She had seen soldiers torn apart by explosions, burned by fire, broken by falls. But the colonel looked worse than most. His skin, normally a dark gray color, was now pale and thin. His eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow and weak. Dr. Velmok stepped forward to speak to the Velthury guards. But before he could say anything, a voice came from inside the pod. "Wait!" Everyone froze. The voice was weak, barely louder than a whisper, but it carried the authority of someone who had commanded armies. The colonel's eyes opened. They were old eyes, eyes that had seen 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories, 1,000 deaths. Slowly, those eyes moved across the room, looking at each doctor, each nurse, each guard. Then they stopped. They stopped on Hannah. The small human nurse standing at the back of the room. The one nobody important should have noticed, but the colonel noticed her. "Sergeant Park," he said. The room went completely silent. Every alien turned to look at Hannah. She felt their eyes on her, felt their confusion and surprise. Hannah stepped forward. Her heart was beating fast, but her face was calm. She knew this moment would come someday. She had hoped it would not. But here it was. "Colonel Dravik," she said. She bowed her head in respect. "It has been a long time. 12 years, the colonel whispered. His pale lips curved into something that might have been a smile. 12 years since Marath. Dr. Velmok looked back and forth between them. "You know this human?" The colonel's eyes never left Hannah's face. "This human saved my life. On the battlefield of Marath, when my own soldiers could not reach me. When the enemy was closing in, this small creature ran through fire and death to pull me to safety." The room was so quiet that Hannah could hear her own heartbeat. "I was dying," the colonel continued. "The medic said I had minutes to live. Our technology could not help me. But Sergeant Park refused to let me die. She used her hands. She used fire to close my wounds. She kept my heart beating for 6 hours through manual compression. She invented a technique to stop my brain from bleeding. Something our doctors said was impossible." He took a shaky breath. "This human saved my life with nothing but determination and knowledge that her species has carried for thousands of years. If anyone can save me now, it is her." Colonel Dravik looked at Dr. Velmok with eyes that had commanded empires. "You will let Sergeant Park lead my treatment." "That is not a request." Dr. Velmok swallowed hard. Then he bowed, "As the colonel wishes." Hannah looked at the dying alien in the pod. She thought about the bioweapon in his blood, the failing organs, the impossible task ahead. Then she rolled up her sleeves. "Let us get to work," she said. Hannah did not sleep for 3 days. The medical wing became her world. She ate there when she remembered to eat. She drank water when someone put it in her hand. But mostly, she worked. Hour after hour. Problem after problem. Fighting to save a life that everyone said could not be saved. The first challenge was the bioweapon. It was still in the colonel's blood, still eating his cells, still spreading through his body. The machines at Helix Prime could not identify it. They could not fight it. But Hannah thought she knew what it was. During the European collapse, she told the doctors who gathered around her, a terrorist group created something similar. A poison that attacked cells from the inside. Our scientists could not stop it either, at first. Then someone had a crazy idea. What idea? Melvix asked. He had not left her side since the treatment began. The poison needed certain minerals to survive. Without those minerals, it would die. So we filtered the blood, removing the minerals that the poison needed. Hannah looked at the colonel's readings on the screen. The problem is, those same minerals are also needed by the body. If we remove them completely, the patient dies. We had to find the perfect balance. That sounds impossible, Dr. Krillak said. It nearly was. We lost many patients learning how to do it. But we also saved many more. Hannah turned to the Tasari engineers. I need you to modify the blood filtration machine. I will tell you exactly how. The engineers worked through the night. Hana guided them, explaining changes that seemed crazy to them. They were trained to trust the machine's programming. Changing it felt wrong, but they did as she asked because the colonel had ordered it. When the modified machine was ready, Hana connected it to the colonel herself. The first few hours were terrifying. The colonel's vital signs went up and down wildly. Several times, the doctors thought they had lost him. But Hana kept working, adjusting the machine by hand, watching the colonel's body instead of the screens. You are not looking at the readings, Dr. Velmach observed. The readings tell me what the machine thinks is happening, Hana replied. But the machine does not know this patient. I am watching his body, his muscles, his breathing. The body knows things the machine does not. By the end of the second day, the bioweapon was dying. The filtration was working. The colonel's color was coming back, but new problems appeared. His secondary heart is failing, Dr. Krillax announced. The bioweapon damaged it too severely. We need to replace it with a synthetic one. Hana shook her head. No, his body is too weak. It will reject synthetic tissue. Then, what do you suggest? We cannot simply grow him a new heart. Why not? The alien doctors stared at her. Dr. Velmach made a sound of disbelief. Velthary hearts do not regenerate. That is basic biology. Once the tissue is dead, it is dead. Human hearts do not regenerate either, Hana said. At least, that is what we used to believe. Then we learned to convince them otherwise. She explained about stem cell therapy, about growth stimulation, about techniques that Earth scientists had developed to help damaged hearts heal themselves. The alien doctors listened with growing amazement. These ideas were not in their medical databases. They were too primitive, too experimental. No advanced civilization would bother with such things. But Hana was not from an advanced civilization. We will need to modify the growth stimulation chamber, she said. And I will need to perform microsurgery on the heart tissue to prepare it. The surgery must be done by hand. The machines are not precise enough for this work. By hand? Dr. Velmach's yellow eyes went wide. That is barbaric. That is human medicine, Hana replied. Sometimes barbaric is what works. The surgery took 14 hours. Hana worked with tools that the station had not used in centuries. Tiny knives, thin threads, simple clamps. The alien doctors watched on screens, barely breathing, as this small human cut into the heart of the most important military leader in the galaxy. Hana's hands never shook. Her movements were small and careful and perfect. She had done surgeries like this before, in field hospitals with bombs falling outside, in underground shelters with no light, in the backs of trucks driving through war zones. Compared to those places, this clean, bright room was easy. When the surgery was over, she started the growth stimulation process. Then she sat beside the colonel's bed and waited. How do you know it will work? Melvix asked quietly. I do not know, Hana admitted, but I believe it will. Sometimes believing is enough. They waited through the night. Hana watched the colonel's chest rise and fall. She listened to the soft beeping of the machines. She remembered other nights like this, sitting beside other dying patients, refusing to give up hope at dawn. The machines began to show something unexpected. The colonel's secondary heart, the one that was supposed to be dead, was showing new activity. Cells were growing. Tissue was healing. Slowly, carefully, the heart was coming back to life. Dr. Velmach looked at the readings 3 times, certain they must be wrong. But they were not wrong. The impossible was happening. How? He whispered. Hana smiled tiredly. The body wants to live. Sometimes it just needs a little help remembering how. Over the next week, the colonel continued to improve. His organs grew stronger. His nervous system repaired itself. The color returned to his skin. One day, he opened his eyes and asked for water. The doctors of Helix Prime watched all of this happen, and they understood that they had been wrong. Wrong about humans. Wrong about medicine. Wrong about what was possible. They came to Hana with questions, with requests, with notebooks full of things they wanted to learn. She taught them freely, sharing everything she knew. Human techniques, human ideas, human ways of solving problems that should not have solutions. Your species has suffered much, Dr. Velmok said one evening as they sat together reviewing patient files. War, disease, disasters. You have lost billions of your people to things we solved long ago. Yes, Hana agreed. We have suffered. And yet that suffering taught you things we never learned. Because we solved our problems with machines, we forgot how to solve them without machines. Hana nodded. Technology is wonderful, but it can also make you weak. When you trust machines to do everything, you forget how to do anything yourself. Dr. Velmok was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "Will you stay? You're at Helix Prime? There is much you can teach us." Hana looked around the medical wing, at the alien doctors who had laughed at her, now learning to use their hands. At young Melvix, practicing how to tie surgical knots. At the colonel, sitting up in his bed for the first time in weeks, his old eyes watching her with respect. "Yes," she said, "I will stay. But first, there was one more conversation she needed to have." Colonel Dravik walked out of his room on his own 2 feet. It was a moment that everyone at Helix Prime had thought would never come. Just 3 weeks ago, the doctors had said he would die. Now he was standing tall, his gray skin healthy again, his old eyes bright with life. The hallways of the medical wing were lined with people who had come to see this miracle. Alien doctors, nurses, engineers, patients who had heard the stories. Soldiers from the Velthary ship. All of them watched as the legendary colonel walked slowly toward the main exit. Hana stood among the medical staff, wearing the same simple blue clothes she always wore. She had not slept much in the past 3 weeks, and it showed on her face. But she was smiling. The colonel was alive. That was all that mattered. Colonel Dravik stopped in the middle of the hallway. His honor guards stood at attention around him, their golden armor shining under the lights. The colonel's eyes swept across the crowd until they found Sergeant Park, he called out. "Come here." Hana walked forward. She could feel everyone watching her. The small human who had done the impossible. She stopped in front of the colonel and bowed her head in respect. "Colonel Dravik, I am glad to see you recovered." The colonel studied her face for a long moment. "You saved my life twice now, Sergeant. Once on Mareth and once here. The Velthary Empire does not forget such things." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal badge. It was gold and shaped like a star, with strange symbols carved into its surface. Hana recognized it immediately. It was the Medal of Velthari Gratitude, one of the highest honors the Empire could give. "This is for you," the colonel said. "You are now officially a friend of the Velthary Empire. You may call upon us for any help, at any time, for the rest of your life." Hana took the medal with trembling hands. "I do not know what to say. Say nothing. You have earned it 10 times over." The colonel turned to face the gathered crowd. His voice grew stronger, carrying the authority of a man who had commanded millions. "I have seen many things in my long life," he announced. "I have seen the greatest technology in the galaxy. I have seen weapons that can destroy planets and machines that can rebuild them. But in all my years, I have never seen anything more impressive than what this human did for me." He pointed at Hana. She saved my life with her hands, with her knowledge, with her refusal to accept defeat. When our machines failed, she found another way. When our doctors gave up, she kept fighting. That is what humans bring to this galaxy. Not technology, not weapons, determination. The stubborn, foolish, magnificent determination to survive against all odds. The crowd was silent. Even the Velthari guards seemed moved by their commander's words. I am establishing a new medical corps within the Velthari military, the colonel continued. A unit trained to operate when technology fails. Soldiers and doctors who can save lives with nothing but their hands and their will. I want Sergeant Park to lead it. Gasps ran through the crowd. This was an enormous honor. Humans had never held such positions in the galactic military structure. They were seen as too primitive, too backward. But Hannah shook her head. I am deeply honored, Colonel. Truly. But I cannot accept. The colonel raised an eyebrow. Why not? Hannah looked around at the alien doctors who had become her students. At Dr. Velmok, who had gone from laughing at her to sitting beside her as an equal. At Dr. Krillax, who now carried a manual medical kit everywhere he went. At young Melvix, who had learned to feel the difference between a patient who was fighting and one who had given up. I am needed here, Hannah said. The galaxy has amazing technology, but that technology has made people forget the old ways. They have forgotten how to work without machines, how to solve problems with their hands, how to refuse to give up when everything seems lost. She turned back to the colonel. I can train one military unit, or I can stay here and teach doctors from every species in the galaxy. I can change not just one army but all of medicine. I can make sure that when the machines fail, anywhere in the galaxy, someone will know what to do. The colonel was silent for a long moment. Then a smile spread across his old face. You are wise, Sergeant Park. Perhaps wiser than me. He nodded slowly. Then I will send my medics here to learn from you. And perhaps, in time, every doctor in the galaxy will know the human ways. He extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Hannah shook it firmly. Thank you, Colonel, for believing in me, for giving me this chance. I did not give you anything, the colonel replied. You earned it, every step of the way. He released her hand and walked toward the exit, his honor guards falling in around him. At the door, he paused and looked back. Sergeant Park, what you do here will change the galaxy. I hope you understand that. Then he was gone. His ship departed an hour later, leaving Helix Prime quiet and peaceful once more. That evening, Hannah stood in the empty trauma wing, looking out the window at the stars. She was tired, so tired, but also proud, and hopeful. Dr. Velmok came to stand beside her. The colonel was right, he said. What you do here will change things. Many doctors will come to learn from you now. Good, Hannah said. That is what I want. May I ask you something? Of course. Why did you become a nurse? With your skills, you could have been anything. A doctor, a scientist, a military commander. Why choose the most humble path? Hannah thought about the question. She thought about her grandmother, who had been a nurse in the old wars. She thought about the soldiers she had saved and the ones she had lost. She thought about all the years of blood and pain and small victories. Because nurses do the real work, she finally said. Doctors give orders. Machines do calculations. But nurses are the ones who hold hands, who clean wounds, who sit beside patients in the dark and tell them everything will be okay. The galaxy needs more of that. More people who care about the small things. Double quotes. Dr. Velmok nodded slowly. We have much to learn from your species. And we have much to learn from yours. That is how it should be. Different peoples, different knowledge, all working together. They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. 5 years later, the Helix Prime Institute of Adaptive Medicine was the most respected medical school in the galaxy. Doctors from dozens of species came to learn the old ways alongside the new. They learned to use their hands, to trust their instincts, to never give up, even when the machine said there was no hope. At the entrance to the institute, there was a sign. It was written in every language known to the galactic community. The words were simple but powerful. Technology is the first tool. Determination is the last. Learn both. Below it, in smaller letters, was something else. A quote from the human who had started it all. Humans do not have the best technology. We have the most practice at surviving without it. And survival, in the end, is what medicine is all about. Park Hannah read those words every morning on her way to teach. She was older now. Her hair had streaks of gray. Her hands were a little slower than they used to be. But she still smiled the same smile. She still believed the same things. And every day, she taught a new group of students that the most important tool in medicine was not a machine or a medicine or even knowledge. It was the refusal to give up. That was what humans brought to the galaxy. That was what she would teach until her last breath. And somewhere out in the stars, Colonel Dravik was still alive, still commanding his armies, still telling everyone who would listen about the small human nurse who had saved his life with nothing but her hands and her stubborn, magnificent human heart.